I originally saw this movie back in the day, probably a year after it came out, as a teenager, saw the movie, saw the ending, and I thought, that's fucked up. And this movie's always been in the back of my mind that that's really fucked up. Now, the actors have gone on to do really good things, really big things, have blown up. And the director did another movie before this one that some would even argue is more polarizing than this movie itself. But this movie's always stuck in my mind. And being a Woody Allen fan, the question I ask myself is why Woody wouldn't do this movie. And it comes to me, and I know we haven't spoken about the plot, people, so I know you're thinking I'm just being very obtuse, but I just want to say, I don't think Woody Allen would make this movie because even though he touches on dark subjects and, you know, he's always very realistic about things, I find every time I think about this movie, there's a kind of meanness or a spirit of meanness or bad intent. I don't think Woody Allen touches at all. A psychological trend that maybe he might have delved more into. Woody Allen talking about death, he's done that a lot. Him dealing with shady characters, he's done that a lot. But when you're dealing with really fucked up people psychologically, I don't think I've seen Woody Allen do it like this. I think it's intentional. And to me, that's why this movie's always stuck in my mind. And I've always wanted to speak about it with you, James. So with that said, I'm going to take a pause and I'm going to ask you, James, what did you think of The Shape of Things?
Well, as far as like a comparison to Woody, the closest I can think of is Deconstructing Harry. Like that's the only time where he got really dark. Maybe Husbands and Wives to some extent, but not to this level. And I could see Woody doing something like this maybe as a bit in a movie.
Yeah.
Especially with how it ends, but playing it up more comically. I hate this movie.
I'm not surprised.
And not because of how the movie is made, but because I dislike every single character in it, including Paul Rudd, who really... Paul Rudd actually, to me, is the weak link in the movie. Because he is playing it so just spineless and cringy, and nobody acts this way. This is him acting. This is like, and I think if I read it correctly, that this was based on a play that he did that the director did first.
Correct.
And then he turned it into a film. Paul Rudd feels like he should be in the stage version of this. Everybody else, I felt like they're in a movie. Paul Rudd felt like he was playing it, you know, to the back row. And
wow.
Just the goofy kind of, especially in the earlier scenes. You're right. It's difficult to like, because we haven't even really said what the movie is about yet. Yeah, he's just so pathetic throughout the whole thing. And I am 100% on his side at the end.
Yeah.
But he's still just so weak throughout the entire movie. And I know that's the character. I know that's what he's supposed to be playing. But he's playing it in a way that is just almost like he's playing it for laughs when it's not really funny.
Yeah.
And I think that's just maybe where he was at in his career at the time. He hadn't really found himself as far as like what his persona was. And yeah, it's just, I was mad by the end of the movie. You're right. What I was thinking, I was watching the end of this movie. I thought about it afterwards. I think I watched the end of this movie. If you had a camera on me, I bet it's the same expression on my face that I would have if I was watching The Exorcist or some like horror movie. I was watching, and I muttered to myself several times, Jesus Christ. Like, I was horrified by the end of this movie. And again, I know that's what they were going for, but because I didn't really sympathize with Paul Rudd that much, all I was left with was this sort of gross feeling of like people at their worst.
Before I let you go on more, I need to ask you, this movie made today, how do you think it plays?
Oh God, that's tough because I think they would want you to sympathize with Rachel Weisz's character more today.
Yes.
Like, I think they would either soften her up or they would just expect you to agree with her.
Do you think what she was trying to do as a character in this movie holds any weight in terms of this, the search of truth, or do you think there's any point to what she was saying?
No, not at all. I think what she was doing was incredibly cruel, and it's, we joke that I hate the artists, but I don't hate the artists because to some extent I am one. And we're talking about Woody Allen. Woody Allen is an artist. You don't go to Woody Allen movies to watch special effects and things blowing up. You go to watch people talk, and you go to watch finely crafted dialogue and things like that. And people talk about pretentious things. People talking about art and literature and Bergman, and so there's some pretension to the Woody Allen movies that we enjoy. And then there are sociopaths. Then there are people who think very highly of themselves. They think they're brilliant. They think that they're saying something really profound, and they have no worry about what they're doing to other people in their search for some sort of truth or whatever in their little experiments that they're doing. And by the end of the movie, I will admit that I didn't really like I said, I didn't like Paul Rudd's character. The two friends, I think I like Gretchen Mol probably the best out of the four of them. She was the one that I could sympathize with the most. But his friend
Frederick Muller.
Yeah, he's kind of a douchebag in the movie. He's kind of Gretchen Mol complains about the fact that he's always got his sunglasses on over his head. That's, he's got the bleached hair and he's got the attitude and he thinks he's hot shit. And I have an automatic dislike for guys like that. But by the end of the movie, I even felt bad for him. I felt bad for everybody by the end of the movie because what Rachel Weisz does is so insane that you can't help but sympathize for the other people because no matter what they might have done, it is nothing compared to what she does.